Hi there, I'm Sashi Sivaram Krishna and welcome to my course Macroeconomics, a Modern Money Theory Perspective. We are in part 1 of the course, Macroeconomics and Money. In lecture 1, we will discuss what is economics. Human beings are social animals. We've always lived in groups. Just think about it for a moment. You decide to live all alone like Robinson Crusoe. You wake up one morning and decide to have a cup of coffee. Where do you begin? By growing some coffee, obviously. But then to grow the coffee, you've got to clear a patch of land. And to clear that patch of land, you need an iron axe, for which you need to smelt some iron ore. And then you need the charcoal too. Once you've done all that, managed to grow some coffee, you then need a clay pot to boil the water. You get the story here. Life is going to be really difficult. And maybe at the end of your life, you have that nice, wonderful cup of coffee. So it makes sense to live in a group. And that's simply because when you live in a group, you can engage in what we call as the division of labor. You don't have to do everything yourself. You can focus on one activity and leave your friends in the group to do the others. Once you allow exchange and trade between members in the group, you can begin to specialize. So let's say I focus on making clay pots. I get better at it. I improve my techniques of making pots. I have better spinning wheels and so on. With this specialization comes an increase in productivity. I can make better clay pots and even more clay pots with the same amount of time that I spent earlier. I can also perhaps waste less clay in making these pots, which reduces my overall effort and so on. And the same goes for the others. They can begin to make a larger output with the same amount of time or with the same amount of resources that they were using earlier. And once we increase productivity all across the group, we find there's an improvement in our standards of living. And this is the economic sequence that lies at the basis of all societies. Let us now try to understand what we mean by the economy. The economy is defined as the organization of production and distribution of goods and services. As long as human beings have lived in groups, they have had to answer two fundamental questions. The first is who does what, which pertains to the organization of production, and the second is who gets what or how much, which pertains to the distribution of goods and services. Any society has had to answer these questions so that all tasks that have to get done actually get done. If you look at a tribal society, for instance, where the tasks might be relatively few, they would go by certain customs, norms, traditions, and enforce these rules through institutions or perhaps a chief. So somebody has to do the hunting, somebody has to build the houses, somebody has to make the implements, and somebody has to make the weapons. And the tribe would decide who does what and what does he or she get in return for what they've done. So what share of the grain, what share of the meat, and so on. If you look at feudal societies, which were far more complex with many more tasks that had to get done, they decided through perhaps a caste system like we had in India. So if you're born into a caste of carpenters, that's what you do. If you're born into a caste of blacksmiths, then you're a blacksmith. You perhaps have no choice. Centrally planned economies as they existed in the erstwhile Soviet Union had to answer these two fundamental questions too. because ultimately they had to get certain tasks done, and which they got done through their own set of rules. Now, how do we go about answering these two questions in today's world? The answer to that is through the market system, which does not work with the same set of rules as we did in a tribal, feudal, or centrally planned economy. There are a new set of rules and a new set of institutions that enable us to answer these two questions. And what we're interested in economics is to study the market system and how the market system goes about answering these two fundamental questions of who does what and who gets what, so that all the tasks, and there are millions of them that have to get done, actually get done. Let us now try to understand what we mean by the market system. The market system is a network of interconnected markets that brings together buyers and sellers to trade and exchange goods and services. Now, markets may have always existed. Even tribal societies would have had surpluses that they would exchange with other tribes, perhaps through barter. But in our present world, we have markets for every conceivable good and service. The entire economy is organized through millions of markets where buyers and sellers come together and decide who does what and who gets what. But how does this happen? You can think of the market as an auction where buyers and sellers bid against their counterparts in such a way that the producers who are willing to supply goods or services at prices lower than their market price will get the opportunity to supply these goods and services. At the same time, buyers who are willing to pay anything above the market price can lay claim to the goods and services being produced. In this auction and bidding process, the market also enables the discovery of the price at which the market clears, where the quantity demanded for a good or service is exactly equal to the quantity supplied of that good and service by suppliers or producers. In this way, we have the market price determined through markets, while at the same time this acts as a signal so that the two major questions that every society has had to answer is answered. The first, who does what, the production, and the second, who gets what in return, or the distribution of goods and services.